Russian propagandists claim that the sowing campaign in Ukraine is at risk of failure and accuse the Ukrainian army of using the prohibited chemical weapons. What are their arguments and why do those statements have no ground? See next in our weekly Russian propaganda review.
Armed forces of Ukraine use prohibited chemical weapons. Russian media, citing the statements of so-called officials of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, spread information that the Ukrainian army allegedly used chemical weapons on the Solidar and Bakhmut fronts. There were reports from unit commanders about the use of chemical weapons by the Ukrainian side on different sectors of the front near the Solidar and Artyomovsk, Bakhmut areas. Some soldiers experienced nausea, vomiting and severe dizziness. Advisor to the so-called temporary acting chairman of the DPR, Yan Gagin, said. Before this statement, Russian Telegram channels shared a fragment of a video showing a Russian soldier drowning while frantically trying to get out of a water channel when a drone above drops a grenade. In the terrible footage, soldiers of the Russian Armed Forces are trying to hide from the Ukrainian UAV in the water, but it's all in vain. After the ammunition is dropped, convulsions begin, after which they drown, the publication state. However, the accusations of the alleged use of the chemical weapons by the armed forces of Ukraine are completely groundless. Moreover, there are no weapons prohibited by humanitarian law in any of the videos distributed as evidence by the Russian media. In the video, you can see the use of an F1 grenade and a VOK-25 grenade. In fact, Ukraine ratified the International Convention on the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in 1998. Sowing campaign in Ukraine is at risk of failure, as all the grain was taken out from country. The pro-Kremlin media has declared a threat of disruption to Ukraine's 2023 sowing campaign as part of supporting the broader narrative of hunger and cold in Ukraine. Russian media report that the grain agreement under which grain from Ukrainian ports was allegedly actively exported to Western countries turned into a disaster for Ukraine itself. As a result of the grain corridor, almost all grain, about 20 million tons, including seed, was exported from the country. Ukrainian farmers have nothing to sow their fields, Russian media state. Another statement by Russian media about the disruption of sowing campaign in Ukraine is nothing more than another round of informational aggression against Ukraine, according to Denis Marchuk, deputy chairman of Ukrainian Agrarian Council Public Union. In the interview with the StopFake, Ukrainian expert noted that the information about the disruption of the sowing is not true. In 2021, we harvested a record crop of oil and grain crops, approximately 108 million tons. For comparison, in the wartime period, despite these conditions, we managed to collect about 67 million tons of these crops. Ukraine needs about 18 million tons to meet its annual needs. That is, even in the conditions of war, we have the potential not only to provide for ourselves, but also to export twice as much to foreign markets. While sympathizing with Turkish people, Zelensky expressed hope that the aid supplies to Ukraine will not stop. Users on social media are spreading information that Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, allegedly wrote a post on Twitter with condolences to the Turkish people due to the devastating earthquake, in which he allegedly did not forget to remind about his hope that the aid to Ukraine will continue. Each such publication has a screenshot of an alleged tweet. However, all of them are photoshopped, the StopFake project confirms. This post was created by a photo editor. President Zelensky did not express sympathy for Turkey in such a way, which is evidenced by all his addresses regarding the devastating earthquake. Moreover, the address was first published in Turkish in the official account of the Ukrainian president and then in Ukrainian. In fact, Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his sincere condolences to the president of Turkey, the people and the families of those killed in the earthquake, and wished a speedy recovery to all the victims.
And now I am joined by Yevhen Fedchenko, the editor-in-chief of StopFake, to talk about recent trends in Russian propaganda. Mr. Fedchenko, greetings and thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
So, Mr. Fedchenko, there are numerous reports, for example, from The Guardian and Harvard Law University about the use of prohibited weapons by Russian soldiers. What is the purpose of the Kremlin to accuse Ukraine of what Russia actually does? Is this a try to distract the audience's attention, or it has another purpose?
Yeah, I think the answer is that they really want to discredit Ukraine and Ukrainian Armed Forces. On one hand, and on the other hand, they just mirroring their own practices, because actually Russian armed forces were accused many times using those types of weapons which are prohibited by international law. And by accusing Ukraine, they just, as I said, just mirroring what usually is accusations against Russia itself. They want to use any opportunity to discredit Ukrainian armed forces, and also they've been very actively using before the full-scale invasion the concept of Ukraine using either chemical weapon or biological weapon, or even preparing its nuclear weapon as a precondition to start a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So they just want to use this weapon of mass destruction as a way to kind of disseminate the discourse of fear, to make sure that people globally would perceive Ukraine as a threat, which is what they want to achieve by those tactics.
But are Russians successful with doing that?
It depends on what regions actually we are talking about. So if we talk about the global north countries, they so far not succeeded much because of very big campaign. Fact-checkers were conducted during years to explain and debunk all those fakes. Also because of the very critical level of perception of Kremlin rhetorics, and just because Kremlin and its disinformation machine is completely discredited and nobody believed them. On the other hand, we have a different situation in the countries of global south, where still we find a lot of audiences who tend to believe, at least partially, in what Kremlin wants to propagate. And this is the region where Ukraine needs to pay a lot of attention and try to talk to local media and local policymakers to explain all those things, and also try to organize campaign that would prove Ukraine's point of view and also debunk Kremlin disinformation in the region.
Let's talk a little bit about sowing campaign. What does Russia want to achieve while spreading the news about the allegedly failed sowing campaign in Ukraine?
I think for that narrative, there are two potential audiences. One is inside Ukraine to disseminate fear in the countries that potentially Ukraine might face problems with food in the future because of this. On the other hand, they absolutely clearly blame international agreements Ukraine achieved and is fulfilling, delivering those food surpluses to international markets, including in the global south countries. So they want to reach out to those countries as well, and again to put the blame on Ukraine for any shortages of food supplies in the future, in the same way as they are doing that right now. So every time we see any news about food shortages in the global south countries, Russia tries to blame Ukraine, not Russia's aggression against Ukraine, for the shortages of food. And again, Russian disinformation tried to fully explode the food crisis as one of the side effects of its aggression against Ukraine.
Oh, I see, unfortunately. Mr. Fedchenko, and my last question to you for today will be as follows. How does the strategy of dehumanizing Ukrainian governments help Russia in the informational war?
This is not a new approach. They've been doing that since 2014 or even before. And this narrative is not new. They really been working very hard to disseminate that among different audiences to make sure that Ukrainians would really look absolutely dehumanized, and they would not get any support from allies and partners, that Ukraine would not be able to get any arms supplies, any financial support, or any moral support, because the image they've been constructing of Ukrainians as fascists who came to power as a result of coup d'etat, who was conducting allegedly genocide in Donbass against local population and other sins, all that was working together to demonstrate that Ukrainians are really non-real humans and they should not get any real support. That was the main purpose of this campaign.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fedchenko. Thank you very much for joining me today, and thank you very much for your answers. This was Yevhen Fedchenko, the editor-in-chief of StopFake. We were talking about recent trends in Russian propaganda.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Latest news, trends, and analytics on all about Ukraine. Like, share, and subscribe. Any questions, proposals, and comments, contact us via email.